Hey guys, it's Javier with Brush Plus Roller Painting, and if you want to learn how to use an airless sprayer, then stay tuned. Alright guys, so we're going to be using a 395 Graco Ultra. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to take your intake tube and you want to dip it in your paint. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to make the paint run through the sprayer. Here is we're going to take our valve, our switch valve, and we're going to point it down. Okay. And then we have a little gadget over here, and we're going to prime it. So you can see that it says prime slow. So we're just going to basically move it till it starts pulling in. And what we're going to check for is we're going to check that our return tube starts releasing paint. Once you start seeing paint come out, then we can go ahead and turn off the pressure. So we'll wait for that. Alright, we got paint coming out. Okay, so we can turn it off. So the next step here is now we have to get paint running through our hose for our paint gun. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take our valve, point it in the paint direction, and we're going to basically do the same thing here. So very, very important here is we want to make sure that we're always got our trigger pulled down, because if you let the pressure build and then you press the trigger, you're going to create a big mess here. So the same process will come to our little gauge here, and we'll just kind of slowly turn it on. We'll kind of wait for it to come out. It's a 50-foot hose, so it's going to take a few seconds for it to come out with paint. You see paint come out? Perfect. Okay, so what I do is I continue with the trigger pulled. You can let it go if you want to, but I want it to continue to run a little bit because it still has a little bit of water mixed in there with paint. So what I'll do now is I'll take it over to my paint bucket. I'll secure the trigger again, and I'll run it for another 15 seconds. This just gets all the air bubbles out of there and all the water out of there. Once you start seeing that flow, that nice and easy flow, we can go ahead and turn it off. Since we're going to be spraying ceilings here, I'm going to attach an extension on here, a Graco PC gun. It originally comes with a stainless steel one, but we wanted to replace it just because this new PC gun here has a light trigger pull, so it's very easy on the hand for those that spray, you know, the entire day. So we'll go ahead and stick this on here, and we'll just kind of tighten it up a little bit here. Want to make sure it's nice and tight. You don't want it too tight either, but you know. Okay, that's good enough. Now you have different, what we call, you know, butterflies. This is what your tip attaches to. So, and that would be a different video, but each butterfly has specific tips. Now this is a Rack X, so it's blue. They have orange ones as well. So these Rack X tips, they support these green fine finish chips and also the blue Rack X tips. So another important thing to know as well, when you have it turned this way, that means you're if you have any clogs in the tip, you can kind of point it towards your paint bucket and get that clog out of there. And then this direction is for you to spray. Sounds good? Okay. So since we're going to be spraying ceilings here, I'm going to show you how to adjust your pressure the correct way. If you can see here, this particular sprayer, it already has, you know, the Rax X green low pressure tips, and it kind of gives you an adjustment there depending on what you're spraying, what tip you're using, and then your blue Rack X tips as well. So I'm gonna show you here on this wall, you know, how to adjust the pressure. And you always want to start with a very low pressure. So, you know, let's start around here, and I'll show you on the wall to see if that'll be a good spray pattern. All right, so this is going to be the ceiling that we're going to be spraying. I've already got this radio room, you know, prepped. I covered the table here. They had a few tables here and chairs. I got that removed. I got all the flooring covered. I didn't cover the walls because they're going to have these paddings all the way through, so it's not going to be the big deal. And this back wall is the wall that I'm going to show you. This wall here, how your spray pattern should be. So let's test this one out. We had this on very low. So if you can see those fingerings at the ends of that. So way too much paint in the middle and not enough in between. So let's go ahead and let's up our pressure. And as you know your materials, you know, as you get accustomed to what paints you're using, you'll kind of identify where is a good spot for you. So let's up that a little bit more and let's see how that does. Let's give it a test here on the side. And when you spray, you want to be about, you know, I always say 8 to 10 inches away from your surface. So a little bit better. But you can still see the fingering. So let's go ahead and a little bit more than halfway. So this is a 517 tip. That 5 number, you multiply by 2, and it, you know, that gives you your fan width, which is 10 inches, and that 17 is going to be your orifice size of how much paint comes out. So this is a 517 tip of low pressure. So let's check out how this works out. That looks a lot better. I'm gonna up it a little bit more, but that's, you know, that's a pretty good fan, pretty uniform there. And when you're spraying, you just want to make sure that you're overlapping it by 50%. So let's go ahead and up that a little bit more. Let's give it one more test run. But I think that should be perfectly fine. Yeah, I think that'll be perfect. Awesome, guys. We got everything covered here. And then, like I said, remember when you're spraying, you want to overlap by 50%. So pay attention on how is it I spray. All right, guys, are you ready? Another thing I forgot to mention is that we got a whip hose for this gun. The whip hose makes it a lot more flexible, especially when you're spraying cabinets. I know a lot of guys like to use it airless. You know, we used it for a while, and then I got an HVLP. But whip hose makes it more flexible. Now, when you're gonna spray, you want to make sure that you start with your edges first. Get all the edges done, and that way you can just kind of come in and spray afterwards. And I'll show you what that looks like. guys. So I got my edge done first. So once we get that edge, then we're just gonna come in uniformly. And remember, overlap by 50%. Are you ready? You want to keep a good pace. You don't want to go too quick. So you'll see as you spray what's the pace that you want to do. And you want to cover, when you're spraying ceilings, the purpose of spraying is to make it easier and for it to cover in one coat. As you see, we're going from a white ceiling to a black ceiling. So you want to get a good coverage. And then I still see a little bit of white, so what I'll do is I just come back, give it a quick little touch up. Sounds good. All right. So this is a pretty small room. I think it's like a 10 by 10. So what I'll just go ahead and do, since I cut in that side, I'll go ahead and finish out the rest here, and I'll cut in the rest, and then I can just kind of spray it all the way through. One thing I want to mention, whenever you're spraying ceilings, you want to make sure where the area that you're walking in, that there's nothing that you'll trip over. This way you can just kind of keep a steady hand and you can walk back and forth. I've seen it in the past to where people have things all over the floor and you're focusing on the ceilings. You trip up, it could be dangerous. So please be very mindful of that. And also, if you're finding this video very helpful, please subscribe and like the video. guys, and just for good measure, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come back and overlap it the opposite direction. That way, if I missed anything, you know, that'll get it nice and covered. But this second overlap, it doesn't have to be, you know, that slow and that uniform. You can go a little bit quicker just because we already got a pretty good coat. All right, guys, I think we're all good to go.